Have you ever watched a TV show or a movie or read a book where the characters are following a map like this one? If there was an X on that map, what could it mean? The X marks where the treasure is. I know that lots of you have been trying to guess what our letter X is going to stand for in our God Is series. I wonder, have any of you guessed correctly? X stands for X marks the spot. God is the greatest treasure. When Jesus was teaching people about God, he often told stories called parables to teach important lessons. Let's go on an adventure to hear about a story that Jesus told. Jesus told a story about a man who was out in a field. Maybe it was a field like this one. And when he was in the field, he found some treasure. It was the most amazing treasure that he had ever seen. He was amazed. He knew that this treasure was greater than anything that he had ever had in his life. So he took the treasure, he buried it again. Then he went out and he sold everything that he owned, and he used the money to buy the field. The field was his and the treasure was his as well. Why did Jesus tell this story? Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like this." What did he mean by that? Jesus meant that knowing God is greater than anything else that we could ever have. Knowing God is the greatest treasure. Wow! The treasure was so great that the man sold everything that he had just to make the treasure his. Wow, it was greater than anything else that he had. We all have things that are precious to us. It might be a toy, it might be a book, it might be a photograph, and those things are great. But those things don't last forever, because toys sometimes break, or maybe they're not our favourite anymore. We can easily lose things. They don't last forever. Things that are made from metal might rust. They don't last forever. But the Bible tells us about a treasure that will never rust, that we can never lose. It's really something that lasts forever. Let's have a look at the Bible. We read about it in John chapter 3 and verse 16. Many of you will know this verse already. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." God sent Jesus to die on a cross to take the punishment for your sin and mine. He rose again. He's alive today in heaven. And if you ask him to forgive your sin, he will. You can be part of God's family and you can have eternal life. And in our last episode, we thought about how that doesn't just start when our lives on earth are over. Eternal life is knowing God here on earth and then spending forever in heaven with him. And that is something that can never be taken away. The Bible tells us that. Let's have a look at another verse. It's Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 and 20. "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal." All of the things that we have are great. God has given us so many things to enjoy, but it's so important that they don't take God's place in our lives. God should be number 1. Knowing God is the greatest treasure, and no one can ever take that away from you. If you have trusted Jesus to forgive your sin, you will have eternal life with God forever. If someone asked you, do you know the Queen, or do you know that singer, or that film star, or that footballer, you might say, oh yes, I know that person. You might know what their name is, where they come from, and what they look like, but it's not the same as knowing that person the way you would know your best friend who you spend time with and talk to. And I'm sure if someone said to you, would you like to get to know that famous singer or footballer? You might jump at the chance to get to know someone famous like that. How much greater is it that because of what Jesus has done for you, you can know God, the creator of the whole universe? It's really amazing. How do you get to know your friends? You spend time with them. You talk to them. And if you have trusted Jesus to forgive your sin and you're part of God's family, it's really important that you spend time with God to get to know him better. Get to know him by talking to him in prayer and by reading from his word, the Bible, or asking someone at home to read it with you. That's how you can get to know God better. It's time to update those posters again. X stands for X marks the spot. God is the greatest treasure. Is God number 1 in your life today?